Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Had a wonderful week. As we come into Friday, we're going to be recapping what has occurred over the past few days, over the past week, several days in the E Mini. We're going to break it down on our 30-minute chart, work our way up to the larger time frames. I'm going to review my trades that I had in the day, the setup that I took, and how I was able to make pretty much capitalize on the entire move for the most part. I did do something that I regret. I did do something I regret in the sense that I didn't allow myself to completely capitalize, and I'll review that here in a minute. But if you guys are new, I would respect you guys a lot and would like you a lot more if you press the like button. If you also find the content useful, as far as just me breaking it down from a technical standpoint, or anything of that nature, subscribe, and we're going to get into it, guys. All right, so let's look at the bigger picture here. So this is a 30-minute time frame. What you see is my profile and all of those jazzy things. So initially, we had this large abundance of inventory up here, all this area right here, right? All that choppiness in that range was a bunch of people that had been getting trapped short, or excuse me, that were getting trapped long because we had been moving up. So people were buying up here. They began to give it up, and we began to sell off. After we broke that low of 69, we began to sell off, got below a pretty critical point at 29, and then that's when we had this big trend day down here. We had a trend day down on back on the 21st of February, and then we began to go in this downward channel, just kind of creating lower lows, lower highs, and just trading lower and lower and lower. We got tested the 200-day moving average, got below the 200-day moving average, but 1 to 2 days does not make a market. I'm gonna get rid of that. But 1 to 2 days does not make a market, so we did not find much acceptance down below. And then yesterday we had what is called an outside day up, meaning we opened up below the previous day's low, took out the previous day's low, came back into the previous day's range, and then took out the previous day's high and closed above it. So not only did we do that, we closed above the 200-day moving average. Very bullish. We had a price probe. Something I was describing yesterday. We had a price probe. We wanted to find acceptance above the price probe, open up above it, or open up in the upper distribution. Yesterday was a what was it? A triple distribution. Excuse me. So we had this distribution here, set of single prints, which is just that one 30-minute time frame. Nothing else went back and forth through it. And then we had another consolidation period, or actually another set of single prints, consolidation period, another set of single prints, and then M's range was the upper end. But we closed at the above the previous day's high and above the 200-day moving average. So once we got above that, you wanted to see buyers step into the market. And then today, what do? We open with a gap. So some things were happening here, right? We were breaking this trend line. We had a very bullish setup with an outside day up, right? You didn't want to see that fell for buyers. Shorts, anybody that was selling in on these days, were obviously trapped and wanted to get out of their position. So they were providing the bid. They were becoming the buyers now. So as they began to exit their positions, they were providing bids on any pullback. And then today we opened up with a gap. So all that means is we opened up above the previous day's high. So we opened up above yesterday's high, which was at 39.95. We opened up with a gap and we hold the gap. Now, what is kind of crazy is we've had several gaps this year, and only this would be the fourth one to hold. Several gaps this year, and only four have held so far. We've only held a few trend days. About 30% of the time, we've held trend days up, like actual trend days, meaning we have single prints. So some things are changing here, right? All year last year, we've been selling off. This year, dips are being bought, right? things are changing. The market sentiment is changing a little bit for the short term. So we trade what's in front of us. We had a gap. You would buy on pullbacks against the gap. And then guess what? If you bought on the pullback and held, you did really well throughout the day. So this is just a breakdown of the general. Let's get into all my destinations. Let's go ahead and bring those up. So these are all my destinations, and you can see here I have the 30-minute time frames labeled A through M period. So that way I can say, hey, the first time frame is A period, second time frame is B period, etc., right? So yesterday we had that massive trend day up above the 200-day moving average, and then today we open up above. And then not only did we have an outside day up, we had put the daily back into a balance. So putting the daily back into a balance, the daily balance high was at 4,350. We open up above that balance high and really started to move. So anybody that was caught short here clearly wanted to get out of their position, so they became the buyer, pushing this market higher and higher and higher. So we got above our balance high. We got the afternoon rally high back from the 27th. So afternoon rally high, we got that. Where we were, if you were expecting to find sellers there, they were not there anymore. And then we got the 27th high. We back tested the previous balance low. That was that big balance area from that I'd shown you earlier, 2950. Back tested that. Had a little bit of issues there, consolidated for a period or two, and then continued to grind higher. We got up to 40.3425, continued to move higher, back tested that daily high, and then began to eat away at this massive sell tail right here from the 21st. So as you can see, that was that trend day. We had a big sell tail, and then we began to eat away at it. So if I were to do that, you would expect to find some type of resistance in this area, right? You would have your resistance, support, and resistance chart looking like that, right? Excuse me, my mouse does not want to work. All right, come on, click. There we go. So we began to eat away at that sell tail late in the day, but we had multiple sets of single prints, so nothing today told you to get out of a long position. If anything, it told you to add to the position on the upside. So what happened in A period? Well, we opened up with a gap, back tested the gap a little bit, and the previous balance high. Couldn't get much for it. Couldn't find many sellers. Pushed up. Couldn't find any sellers at the afternoon rally high. Continued to push up. Relatively small range. Then in B period, we open up, pull back, back test the open, and take out A's low. Now, you're probably thinking, we're going to fill this gap. So people were initially selling here, thinking you would fill the gap because most gaps have not held this year. And anybody that was selling here, well, we were quickly reversed and got back above the open and pushed higher, taking out A's high, getting a reversal bar because anybody that got caught short down here was obviously getting out and switching long. Then so we had a reversal bar. Then in C period, we took out B's high, began to one time frame up, and then we did that all day long. So just taking out previous time frames high. We went trend in E period. So we took out the 24th high, or we got above the 2475 level, back tested the 29 level, took that out, created another set of single prints in G period, got above the 3425 level, back tested it, created another set of single prints in J period. So massive short covering rally, almost got the weekly high from the previous week, and didn't quite get there as we found sellers. So what did I do this morning? Well, when I seen in B period that we had pulled back and did not fill the gap, right, and we got back above the open, I got into a long position. So I started buying around 4,005, 4,004. I eventually got up to a 5 lot, and then I held this basically, let it get back above A's high, wanted to continue to hold and see how we would ride out the rest of the day. Because yesterday we had a massive trend day up, right? the most bullish thing we could, and we opened up above the price probe, so bullish in every sense. We had higher value. We couldn't get below, we couldn't fill the gap, so we held the gap, another bullish thing. And then we got back above the open and never seen it since B period. So C and D periods, right? We never got back to the open. So I was comfortable holding my position. And then in E period, I began to see some pretty decent resistance or sell pressure at this previous day's high here at 24. So I began to see some resistance around that area, seen some large sellers step in, and it kind of spooked me out of my position. So I exited all my position right there around 22, 25. So I was buying. So I got roughly 20 points on all of those contracts. And I actually cycled a few because I was selling a few up here. And as we pulled back in D, I added to my position and then let it ride up in E period. And then I sold out around 20, 24s, and 25s. And then actually ended up trying to go short in E period, which I clearly was wrong about. That was the one thing I regret about today, is getting out of my long position, getting spooked out because there was no reason for me to sell. Getting out of that position and then trying to short on a new high. So I'd shorted like roughly 25. So against this day's high, sold there, it didn't come in, and I got stopped out of my position for like a 2-3 point loss because I put on a 2 lot. So it was roughly 6 points that I lost on there. And then I got involved again late in the day in G period. Was it G period? No, it wasn't G period. It kind of sickened me. I was a little upset with myself to watch F and G just kind of grind up higher and continue to set new highs on the day. And so I told myself the next pullback we get, I will look for a long position. So I actually positioned myself in I period against H's low. And then in J period, when we pulled back against the set of single prints here, I was expecting, oh, whoa, what am I doing here? I was expecting to find buyers in this range, right? I was expecting to find buyers here. Instead, I would put my stop down here. How am I going to highlight this? Put my stop here at G's, or at J's low, 33, or excuse me, not 33, not that one. Ignore everything I'm talking about. That is not the trade that I took. This is the trade that I took. I took a long position here and was willing to add on the pullback because I felt odds were better on setting a new high on the day versus filling these sets of single prints and taking away this trend day. So I had my stop down here at G's low. Had my stop down here. Oh my God, this mouse, I'm about to throw it against the wall. So I added to my position on the pullback in J period, and then I continued to let this thing ride up as J was a reversal bar, took out H's high, ran those stops. So anybody that was short again obviously got stopped out, began to buy up the market, and we continued to grind up higher. And I finally exited my full position because I got in long four contracts. I wanted to add more on the way down had we pulled back more, because at the time, the 144 was roughly, it was right below it. So I felt, odds were pretty good that we'd at least hold that. And then we had been riding this 9 EMA on our 15-minute chart over here on the right side, been riding that all day long. So I felt like odds were pretty good we'd hold that. So I was willing to add on if we pulled back more and filled this first set of single prints, because if anything, that would have been the afternoon pullback low. And then we would have went and set new highs on the day, which is exactly what we did, but we didn't fill the first set of single prints. So I was long, let this thing ride, and exited my full position at 52.75. Now you might say I'm lying, but I'm not. Because the high right there was at 50. What was the high? 53 was the high in L period. And I exited my position at 42.75. Roughly 80 points on the day, 86 points to be exact, is what I captured. Could have had a better day had I just held my initial position here and added on each one of these pullbacks. each pullback added, and then finally exited at the close. But either way, I'm happy with how I traded today. It was a trend day up, and something I'm trying to work on whenever we break out of balance is add to my positions and let it work for me. Instead, I was trying to have targets, and targets were not the way to go. I'm trying to trade without targets, trying to be hopeful when I'm fearful and be fearful when I'm hopeful. So basically, all that means is I need to be hoping for more profits on the way up instead of fearing that I'm going to lose paper profits. And then I need to be fearful if I'm in a losing position, where normally you would be like, I hope this comes back. I hope this comes back up, right? So that's just something I'm trying to work on as a trader. Now let's go ahead and mark our destinations. We got today's low of day. Let's mark our destinations here. Low of day here is 98. Overall, the last 2 days I've done really well. Cannot complain about how I've traded the last 2 days. Only complaint is getting out of my long position in E period and then flipping short just to get stopped out and then re-enter at a higher price, which I was okay with. I'm glad I had the initiative to get back in the position because clearly we made new highs on the day. But nothing ever told me to get out of the trade. I should not have exited the trade there. Not a single thing told me to get out of the trade except for my impatience and my fear of giving back paper profits. So that's something I'm going to continue to work on as the year goes on. Today's low of day and gap starts here. So low of day. Then we have our first set of single prints here that start at 23. 23, or they fill at 23, I should say. Single prints fill. So you should find some buyers in these regions. Now I hope you're marking these on your charts along with me, at least on your 30-minute chart, because these are good destinations and reference points to have on your chart if we pull back to these areas. So the single print start at F's low, 2650. So if we were to pull back into that area, you should find buyers. Or at least if we have enough supply, then you can look for those areas to fill because they become targets to the downside. Single print start. And then you have so our lower distribution is here from C's high to B's low. So from 40.23 to 39.98, that's one distribution. And then we have it's basically all of F's range from 26.50 to 31.50 is the middle or the second distribution. Because today was that 1, 2, 3, 4? Today was a quadruple distribution day, which is absolutely unheard of. You don't really have many of those. So that just goes to show you how strong the buyers were all day and how weak the shorts were as they were getting out of their position. So single prints fill here, 323. And I know these videos are absolutely long as all get out, but I appreciate you sticking around if you have made it to this far. Single prints start here at 34. Like I said, these destinations become targets on the downside. So if you have plenty of supply, you should see get back to these areas and potentially find responsive buying. So you'd look to initiate a buy position or a long position in these single prints and then get out if they were to fill, because then that shows there are no more buyers in that area. Single print start there, and then we have another distribution, which is all of H's high to J's low. So from 40 40 50 to 40 34 is another distribution. Small, but it's another distribution. And then H's high is where the single prints fill from J period. And I'll review these in depth here in just a second. That way you kind of understand a little bit more. And then they start here in M period against the 43 area, 43. Single print start 3/3/23. And then we have today's high of day up here at 53. All right, so single prints, as you can see on a 30-minute time frame here, there was only one time frame that came through this area. So here in E period, it was the only time frame to pass through 4023 to 4026.50. After that, E, F, and G period traded between 2650 and 3150. So there were 3 different time frames that traded through that area. And then in G period, you have a set of single prints from 3150 to 34, and it was the only time frame that traded through that area. So that's just showing intraday gap is basically what it is. So we treat each one of these distributions as a different day and potentially find buyers in those gaps. Just like we have this gap down here, you want to find buyers here to hold the gap. You want to find buyers in these intraday gaps on the 30-minute time frame. And then, as you can see here in J period, when we pulled back into that set of single prints, you found buyers at 34, in that 34 to 31 range, right? Same thing in J period, when it made a new high on the day. It was the only time frame that passed through the 40.50 to 43 level. And then clearly you had all the rest of these time frames, K, L, and M, that traded between 43 and 53. And then M period pulled back into that set of single prints and then closed back near the high of the day. So just like intraday, you found buyers on pullbacks near these areas, you should attempt to find buyers there once again. So that's why it's important to have them marked on your charts. Now let's go into the larger time frames. Monthly is in a balance, multi-month balance. Could you say this is a 2-month balance or a 3-month balance? You can say it's a 3-month balance if you would like. But for me, my monthly balance high is 43.2750 to 35.02. Once we come out of this large range, then you should expect a pretty decent move. But seeing how we really haven't found much extension above the 41.41 level just yet, you can expect to find some more resistance near that level. Weekly. Weekly, interesting thing here, right? We had this downtrend. We back tested this downtrend. We broke it, and now we've back tested. So we broke and retested this downtrend. You're looking to find, you were looking to find buyers around that downtrend, or get back below it if you were a seller. The weekly was in balance. It broke out of balance to the downside, and then we took out this week's or last week's low, but not by much. So we're going to say the weekly went from down to balance. We're going to say it's a 2-week balance now, and if we take out last week's high, which is not too far, you'll have to ignore the 81.75. We're not counting the holiday. The balance high is at 56.25. So if you were to get above 56.25, actually, let's go ahead and mark that. 56.25. That's where our balance high is, and then our balance low would be this week's low. So next week you look to take out that 56.25 area. This week's low was 31. 40.31. Or 39.31, excuse me. 39.31 was this week's low. And you would name that balance low. Boom. So if I were to bring up the daily, you'll see exactly why I'm saying you ignore this day up here. It's the was that holiday that we had, President's Day. So you want to ignore that day and only use this day as the weekly balance high. Yesterday I was talking about on the daily. You wanted to. We were initially in a 3-day balance. We broke out of that balance today to the upside, and I said if we got above today's high and above the 50, you should get pretty good move and extension to the upside to go and back test the 20-day moving average. We didn't quite get that far, but we did make a decent move. We took all these shorts that were selling on these days. We're clearly getting out and got out of their positions in roughly 2 days' time. Pretty good range today, decent volume. The daily is now one time frame and up. So the weekly is in a balance, and then daily is now one time framing up. So all that means is now we're setting higher highs and higher lows on the daily. Something I wanted to note is that we, once again, like on the weekly, we back tested this trend line that we broke out of, and we held above it so far. Another thing to note is so far we've had higher highs, higher low, higher highs, higher low, higher highs, and another higher low so far, back testing the 200-day moving average. Now the question is, do we get back above this area of consolidation here, move above the 41.41 level, finally get acceptance above that, and then fill this gap up here? So that's something to keep in mind. Looking good so far for the buyers this year. Let's see if they can keep it up. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for stopping by. I hope you all have a great one. We'll catch you next week.